PS students. This is Michael. Moving on to our next assignment, which is number guesser. My opinion, it seems a little bit more straightforward than blackjack that we had to deal with last week. So this should be a nice break, and hopefully this video that I have is a little bit more clear, kind of, doing these for the first time. So hopefully I'll improve each week. So let's go over the number guessing game. So I'm going to bring up a version of the program I wrote on my own, and just to illustrate how the output of the program should work. So basically, in the console, I get some output. Basically, it tells me to choose a number between 1 and 100. And so I'm going to choose in my head, okay, thinking of the number 7. And the first thing my program does is it asks, is 50 your number? And this program that we have for number guesser, every single time we start a new round, it should always ask if 50 is our number. Because basically the way that the program is going to work is it's always going to choose the midpoint between the range that we have. So at the very beginning, it chooses the midpoint between 1 and 100, which is 50. And since my number is 7, I'm going to provide some input for the program and say, no, 50 is not my number. My number is 7, and that is lower than 50. So I put that in, and now my program, it makes another guess, and it asks if 25 is our number. So basically, this is kind of showing the pattern of what the algorithm, or basically what the code we're typing in each succession, what it does, which basically we provide some response that says, no, that guess was either too high or too low. And then what it will do is, we know that, okay, if 50 is too high of a guess, that means that the number that the person playing our game is thinking of must be between 1 and 50 now. So we're going to update our new range. So the new range is now between 1 and 50, not 1 and 100. So we're going to guess the midpoint between 1 and 50, which is 25. Does that make sense? So now what we're going to do is, our number is 7, so that's lower than 25. Now it guesses 12. So if you're noticing the pattern, basically that's the midpoint, the halfway point between 1 and 25. And then so our number is 7, which is lower than 12. Then it guesses 6, which is the halfway point between 1 and 12. And then we notice that that is actually too low of a guess. The number that we're thinking of, 7, is higher. And now it guesses, is 9 your number, which is the midpoint between the range of numbers that we think are correct, which is 6, between 6 and 12. 9 is the midpoint between 6 and 12. And that is actually too high of a guess. So our number is actually lower than 9. And then it guesses 7. Okay, yeah, correct. Good job, computer. That is my number. And it says, congrats, you guessed the right number. Do you want to play again? And basically, we can restart this entire loop of the program by saying, yes, we do want to play again. And what do you know? It starts and it guesses 50 for a new round of the game. So hopefully that should be clear and elucidate what the program is doing in terms of how it comes to get the right number. It does that by basically choosing midpoints that are between the range of possible numbers, because every single time our program receives input, it can divide the range of possible correct choices in half. So by choosing 50 the first time, and we say it's either higher or lower than 50, it can divide the range of possible guesses in half. So it can either be between 1 and 50 now, or it can be between 50 and 100. So now I'm going to jump to kind of a blueprint of how we can think about writing the program. We obviously know that there's one giant outer loop, similar to blackjack. So here we are. So this is kind of a blueprint that I made similar to blackjack, and it kind of gives an overall blueprint for how we can visualize the code being structured and laid out. We know that fundamentally our code will have an outer while loop that runs everything that is contained inside of the game. That makes it so at the very end we can play again by typing in y or n, and it will rerun everything. So you can see that this while loop, this outer while loop, can restart at the very end of the program when we send some output to say, do you want to play again, yn. And in order to do this, you'll use the cout and cin stream objects. Again, I have all of these references to online examples of how to use while loops, how to use a break statement, using an if statement, using the cout and cin stream objects. So again, you might want to check these out. But so let's go through this code, or the structure of how you might want to write this code. You can do it in many, many different ways. I just thought, I would want to kind of preserve a lot of the a similar structure to how I introduced playing blackjack for last week's assignment. So we have this outer while loop, and so while this variable called playing is equals y, we run this. So we're going to basically declare this variable playing at the very beginning of our program, and you can see that I have this as the third note here. It says that we're going to need to declare a variable to store the player's response to, quote, do you want to play again? And this will be a char, which is the data type for the variable, short for character. And this is going to be the condition. So that basically just means a statement that can either be true or false. That's inside of our first while loop. So while playing is equals if it's equivalent to y, then we run the code that follows. If playing is not equal to y, for example, we press no, we do not want to play again. Basically, we stop running any of this code underneath. So while playing is equal to true, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to send output to our player using cout, and it's going to say basically guess a number between 1 and 100. That's the first thing that we saw when I ran the example of my program earlier. And the next thing we want to do is, once we tell the player to guess a number, we're going to run an inner while loop. So basically that means another while loop that is indented and is underneath our first while loop. So, and I called this while guessing. So guessing is going to be another variable that we declare at the beginning of our program, and it is a variable that's going to store whether our program is inside of the guessing loop. So basically, while we are still guessing, our program is guessing the correct number that our person is thinking of, and it can receive input by the user whether the guess that our program made is too high or too low. And the data type for this variable is going to be a Boolean, which is basically means it can either be true or false. And so Boolean is the full name of the variable type, but the way you would declare it in C++ is by saying bool, B-O-O-L. So it would look like something like the way you would declare it is you would type, this is going to be called, guessing. Sorry, you would say declare the type of variable, so bool guessing. And since we want the this inner while loop to run the first time we run our program, we should set it equal to true. So that's what you'd want to type, is something like bool guessing. So the type of variable, Boolean, which you can abbreviate as bool, guessing equals true. And inside of this guessing loop, we're going to want to send output to the person playing using cout. We're going to basically say, is it, or like, is your number, and we're going to put in a variable we're going to declare as number, and it's an integer. And number, we're going to, when we declare it, we can set it equal to the first midpoint, which is between 1 and 100, so that being 50. It's going to be our first guess. So it's going to say, is it 50? And then and that line. And then what we're going to need to do, what we're going to need to program is we're going to need to be able to assign the input stream object using cin to another variable, which you can store as something called response, or answer, whatever. I called mine response, which is going to be a character, and that can either be an H, L, or C. So basically, the first time it says, is 50 your number, and your user's going to type in, no, mine's lower, L. And what we're going to use the C in stream object to assign whatever the person types into the console and store it as a response variable, which will be a character, since H, L, or C can all be characters. Finally, so now that we have the character that our user typed in stored as this variable called response, we're going to basically have 3 conditional statements, so if statements, basically. So conditional statements, these are basically things that can be statements that can be evaluated as being true or false. So there are 3 conditional statements. The first one is if response is equal to H, if response is equal to L, or if response is equal to C. And based on whether which of these scenarios evaluates to be true, we're going to do basically different procedures. Our algorithm is going to do different things. And before I jump into any single one of these, I'm going to kind of explain what fundamentally the number guessing game algorithm, how it should work, because it follows a pattern. The pattern being it's always choosing the middle point between the range of possible numbers. So let's basically unpack this for a second. First thing, what is a midpoint between 2 numbers? Good question. So the midpoint will be the number that lies directly in the middle of a number line between a low value and a high value. So the very beginning of our program, the midpoint is going to be 50 because it is in the middle between 0 and 100. And the way you can even calculate that is the way of getting the midpoint is you add the lowest value in the range, 0, to the highest value in the range, which at the beginning is 100, and you divide by 2. So 0 plus 100 is 100 divided by 2 is equal to 50. So that's what our number equals at the very beginning. So you can see that when we declare variables, we have this number variable as an integer, and then we have 2 other int variables, integer variables, for low and high. And you can see here that we have 3 number variables, low, number, and high. And so basically, I'm going to run through an example where if our response is too high or our response is too low, what we're going to want to do to all of these variables that we have in order to then give another guess, basically for our program to develop a new guess that it will have. That's a new midpoint between a new range based on whether we know if the response that our player gives, either no, my number is higher than that, or no, my number is lower than that. It basically will know, we'll choose a new midpoint that's either lower or higher. So if our number is higher than 50, so for example, let's say our number is 94. So we would type in, no, 50, that's, our number is higher than 50. So if we type in H, and so response is storing H, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to update the lower part of the range. So in that case, we'll know that the lowest possible answer for what our number could be is now going to be 50, because we said that our the number that we were thinking of is higher than 50. So basically, the new low that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to update low, and we're going to say low should now equal, it should equal number, which is where 50 is. So now we can imagine, okay, so this is now equal to 50, and we can keep high the same, but we can recalculate what number is now. So number is going to be equal to, again, low plus high divided by 2. So we just updated low. So low now equals number, and number was equal to 50. So you can see that it has it there. So now we're going to recalculate number, which is equal to low plus high divided by 2. So 50 plus 100 divided by 2 equals 75. So now the number that we have, this variable called number, is reassigned to 75. So you can see I kind of wrote this out here. What we're going to want to do is, if response is equal to H, we update low, the integer value we have that will store the lowest value that is within the range of possible correct guesses. And then we're going to calculate the next midpoint, and we did that by reassigning number to equal low plus high divided by 2, and then we updated our number variable to the next guess. So we basically assigned number to this new calculation. So now what will happen is, once we do everything inside of this if statement, we're going to repeat everything in this while guessing loop, because while guessing is still equal to true. So now what we do is we send out output again using cout, and it says, is it 75? Because now number equals 75. And then we're going to say, we're going to expect that the person using our program is going to say, no, the number I was thinking of, 94, is higher, and type in H. So then we enter this entire loop again. And if our response is too high, so what we're going to do is we reassign low to equal number. So then, again, our algorithm just changes low to equal 75, and it'll recalculate number. And it will basically add 75 to 100, and then assign that equal to number. So the halfway point between 75 and 100, let's see, I'll just actually, should be able to do this in my head, but 175 divided by 2. So it will guess 87. And so I can reassign this to equal 87. And then, again, we're kind of understanding the pattern now, but just to show how this algorithm works, I'm going to do it once more. Our program re-enters the while loop. It asks, is it 87? And then we say, no, it's higher than that. So now our low value will equal 87. And we have to recalculate what is the midpoint between 87 and 100. And so 187 divided by 2 is equal to 94. So that's actually what will happen is we get it. It guesses our number actually at this point. So that's kind of cool. So number now equals 94. And it will say is it 94, and then at that point we will say the user will put in C for correct. It is 94, and inside of the response for if response equals C, what it's going to do is our program will want to re-update number for a new game, and then we're going to want to leave this while guessing loop because we're done guessing. So what we'll do is we're going to re-update number to equal 50. We'll also want to update low and high to 0 and 100, and then we're gonna want to leave the guessing loop by using a break statement. So a break statement, you can look it up on the links here, but basically if you put it inside of a while loop, so you say break, it will exit the while loop that it's embedded in. So it jumps out of this while guessing loop, and then the next line of code that it reads is something that's going to send output to the user saying, do you want to play again? Why no? And you're going to need to use the cout and cin. And if we press, the user presses Y, then it re-enters this while playing loop, and we start the entire thing over again. We send out the output, guess number between 1 and 100, and then we enter the while guessing loop because that is still equal to true because we set it equal to true at the very beginning. So hopefully, yeah, this should kind of give you the overall idea of how this algorithm of guessing midpoints works. The example I used was when I went through it with you with the number 94, only kept on going into if our response was too high, and never actually went to where it had to fine tune it and go a little bit lower. But you can basically work through this yourself and basically understand this, by, try typing it out yourself, where on paper, write it out and make sure that the two conditional statements you have for if the response is too high or if it's too low, if you understand what's going to do. If the response is too low, for example, we kind of just do the opposite, where we update the higher end of the range. So for example, if we're choosing the number 7 at the very beginning and we guess 50, what we're going to need to do is we need to update the high value of our range. So we're going to want high now to equal, we're going to want it to equal number, which is 50. So we changed, this to equal 50, and now we're guessing between 0 and 50, which our new middle point, mid value will be 25. So the next thing that our program will guess is the number 25. So let's imagine that we chose 7, and then eventually we're in a state where our low and our high and number is equal to 6. So this is what happened earlier in this video when I was showing you my program, where it was guessing between 6 and 12, and then the midpoint between that was 9. And what it did is from here, we said, actually, you can go back and watch that part yourself. This video is probably getting long enough. But so yeah, if you have any questions, please respond to the YouTube video directly. I kind of monitor that and can give feedback, type out answers, or make a response video again. But best of luck. This blueprint should really help. And let me know if you have any questions. Anyway, good luck programming, and I will see everyone starting Monday next week when I'm in class. Anyway, good luck.